Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Corlick from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to the 4th anniversary of our friend, the PlayStation 5. Yes, it is actually the 4th birthday of the PlayStation 5, and we're going to talk all about it. And yes, we got the nice fancy microphone set up here just because this is a discussion video purely. So before we do all that though, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, as well as check out all the social media stuff in the description. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, my Spreadshirt, travel channel. I appreciate the support on all those platforms. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, so believe it or not, it really has been 4 years since the launch of this thing. If you missed it a couple of days ago, I did a video on the 4-year anniversary of the Xbox Series X, in which the consensus was largely, the system hasn't been that interesting, but here's everything Microsoft did that's kind of bizarre. The PlayStation 5 situation is a little different. So obviously, if you're watching it the day this came out, November 12th, 2024, then yeah, it's been 4 years, and we're going to talk all about a little bit of the last year that the system has had, some highlights, lowlights, maybe some projections, etc. And yeah, let's just have a fun little discussion here. So, as I said, if Microsoft's position was, hey, let's just, rather than focus on the console, we'll just focus on like what the corporate overlord did, their situation is different than Sony's. So in order to understand that, you have to understand that Microsoft, we can, you go back and watch that video, you watch any of these people talking about like the death of the Xbox brand, whatever it is, oh, we should make all these suggestions on them. The thing is, Microsoft, despite all of its failures with the Xbox brand, and there's been numerous, it is a brand that does not make money, really never has. Despite that, Microsoft is a $3 trillion plus corporation, the most successful company in the history of the world. So it's hard to argue that Microsoft is under any sort of threat of the Xbox failing, because even if it does, and it always has actually, it doesn't impact them. Their profits continue to go up from other divisions. The same cannot be said for Sony. Sony actually needs the PlayStation brand to do well. It's no longer nearly as dire as it was like 10 years ago, but it is still a thing where they really do need this thing to be successful. So in that regard, the system has actually been more interesting from the console itself's perspective as opposed to what Sony overall has been doing, but not a whole lot. Much like the Xbox brand, there were really only 2 exclusives on that thing, and I was kind of making fun of it. Like there was Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, which is actually pretty cool, by the way, but also Hellblade 2. Well, funny enough, there was only really 2 on this one. There was Helldivers, so it was, what the hell? There was that, which was actually was much like Hellblade, was right near the beginning of the year. And then the big other one that came out not that long ago actually was Astrobot, which is really good. A lot of people really love that game. That one was actually like a big success and was probably their game of the year, because it was a game that effectively you could only get on PlayStation. It probably will have a PC version at some point, I would imagine, given the way Sony's going, as Sony is now more willing to put their stuff up there, but that's a different discussion. Point is, that was probably the most interesting experiences you could have on this thing. Now, last year, when I did the 3rd anniversary birthday, I basically made a prediction that this year was mostly going to be about the PS5 Pro, and boy, was I right. So think about this. As of today, we are 4 years into this system. It has 3 different models, not including like subtle under the change hoods, just like the big ones. Like this is the launch version, like the big, original version. They did a Slim about a year ago, and now we have the PS5 Pro. That's a lot of hardware changes in only 4 years. Even for Sony, that's excessive. And if you match that to the timeline of the PlayStation 4, it would almost seem like they're planning on jumping out of the system soon, which I don't think is the case. I would think you have at least 2 more years of it being like their relevant system. But the fact that we're already on a Pro model is kind of like eyebrow raising. But anyway, we'll probably, we'll get back to that. Let's go back a little bit further in time. After Helldivers, not a whole lot happened for a while. We just kind of got the usual fare like we did with Microsoft, where it was just, oh, third-party company here is dropping a game. I know that at one point Square dropped a Final Fantasy game that was exclusive to the system, so that's cool, but that wasn't Sony themselves, although they no doubt had some sort of deal in place or whatever. But point is, it wasn't a super interesting year. I'm sorry, I just knocked the microphone. It wasn't a super interesting year for them. It kind of all came to a head, though, this summer. That's where all the, shall we say, drams came in. I don't remember exactly what month it was. Was it August? I think it might have been August when Concord dropped. Let's talk Concord. Now, I talked about it already in a different video, but why not? It's a fun story. Let's revisit it. Concord was a game Sony had in development for the better part of 8 years. About $100 million was spent on it. And it flopped in legendary status to the point where they're trying to erase any, vestige of its existence from the internet. Like, they basically want to pretend like it really never happened. So the story with that game was basically that after all that time, it finally comes out. It was effectively like an Overwatch clone. They gave out early dev review unit, keys and so on and so forth. And the initial numbers, even amongst that crowd, was not good. But I think they were believing that it was going to be a bigger release once it actually came out, once it was in beta and all that sort of stuff. None of that ever happened. The game finally came out in a full release on, I think it was definitely PS5. I don't know if there was a PS4 version off the top of my head. There was a PC version that was refunded to everybody like almost immediately. And there was a physical PS5 version. That one's the most interesting one. So the game is up. And almost immediately, it was shut down. It was actually completely shut down within 11 days. I believe Steam refunded everybody who bought it digitally. And I say bought in quotations because digital content is not property. And so much so that the state of California just recently passed a law making that true. They were like, you can no longer refer to a digital download as a purchase. So they're forcing companies to refer to it as a rental or a download or something like that. You can no longer say buy or purchase because you don't actually own it. That's actually the official position of all these companies is you don't own digital content. Even your precious Steam says it in their EULA, this is not your property. You just have access to it while we allow it. Just saying, digital content is not property. I'm a big game preservationist guy, and I wish luck to Gen Z in understanding that one day. But anyway, and to the younger millennials. But anyway, so the game comes out and is a spectacular failure. If anything, that game should be an absolute reminder that you don't own digital property, or digital content, I should say, because it's not property. Because they were able to deactivate the game from people's consoles, even if you bought it. It would just stop working. And I don't mean like you would launch the game and the servers would be unfunctional. That obviously was true. But they could disable you from launching it. If they can do that, you don't own it, buddy. So the physical versions is funny too, because that's the same thing. It won't launch or anything like that. Maybe if you have a PS5 with no updates on it or something, it could launch into something. I don't actually know that, but I don't know. But point is, even that physical version is gimped as hell. It's just kind of funny because the physical version is the only version of it that endures. Now they ultimately shut it down because the game just, even its launch, it had pathetic numbers to the point where they realized it was going to cost more to maintain it than it was ever going to generate. So it was a cut your losses type of situation. It just looked horrendously bad. That was the first major story out of them this year, and that was all the way in the midsummer. Like it really has been a very uninteresting year from them. Shortly after that, they acquired a lot of goodwill, though, when they released Astrobot. People loved that game. They were talking about it being like game of the year. It's a huge hit. Everybody loves it. All of a sudden, Concord is forgiven. It's forget about it. It's none of us got hurt on it. None of us downloaded it. It's all right. Just forget about it. Yeah, it was kind of funny, and it sucks that you lost that money. But hey, it's all right. It's all good. You gave me Astrobot, and that gave me a reason to get a PS5. Then they announced PS5 Pro, and all of that was just killed. So PS5 Pro, I made a video on it at the time. Here's how I truncate the PS5 Pro. Before sales tax, it costs $700. It is diskless. So if you want to buy a disk drive, you have to pay an additional $80. And it does not include the stand. So $780 before tax, and you don't even get a plastic stand to hold it upright. And while it certainly has better capabilities than the PS5 base model, it's not a next generation console, but it's almost marketed like one, or at least it was presented like one. And the funniest part about that is I said this last year, that this year in 2024, what I expected from Sony was that their big push was not going to be some big game this holiday season. What it was going to be was the PS5 Pro as a piece of hardware. And turns out I was completely right. That's exactly what they're doing, is they're banking it all on that system. And the logic behind that was, as I said, Microsoft doesn't really need or doesn't really expect the Xbox division to ever yield any money. So it doesn't really matter anymore what they do over there. So they don't really care. Their version of a holiday release was, yeah, we gave you a white all digital Xbox Series X, buy it or don't. I don't give a like that's pretty much been their attitude. But with the PS5, Sony actually needs it to be successful. So they've been banking on GTA 6. They apparently largely built the PS5 Pro with GTA 6 in mind, and the logic behind that is that GTA 6 is going to be console exclusive at least for a little while. I don't know if it's a year or what it is, but it's going to be on console only. Now, it's not going to be on the Switch. The Switch can't run it, which means their only competition is the Xbox, which means it doesn't really have competition because Xbox in general doesn't even really care. But to that end, Sony's like, let's be really sure this is going to work for us, because GTA 6 could do huge for them. So they basically built a console specifically around it. And I guarantee you next year there's going to be some sort of GTA 6 bundle of the PS5 Pro. How much of a haircut they give you on that, I have no idea. But it's going to happen. They're going to bundle it in some capacity at some point. Even if it's exactly the same price, like where they keep it full price, where you have to still, like as if you were buying the game plus the system anyway separately, guarantee they're still going to bundle it together. But that seems to be what they base it on. Now, if you think that's a weird strategy to build an entire console around a different company's game, yeah, I would agree with you. But when you look at it and say, well, it can't come to PC per Rockstar's decision, at least not for a while. It can't come to the Switch because Nintendo's hardware is incapable of running it, unless Nintendo suddenly drops, shall we say, Nintendo Switch 2 on us and surprise sleeper release of that game, which is, I would think, unlikely, but you never know. I guess not impossible. And it will definitely have an Xbox version, but it'll be gimped. They basically look at it and say, we can have a monopoly of like the biggest game of the decade. We should really own that. That's what they're going for. So everybody is mocking the PS5 Pro, and I wouldn't say I was necessarily mocking it, but I don't have any respect for it because it intends to be a digital-only platform. And as I've made very clear in this video already, not to mention 15 years on YouTube, I do not respect digital content. I do not consider it property, and I think of it as the theft of your basic rights to the concept of ownership. And so I will not support that. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, but you could just get the disk drive and attach. No, it's very clearly an afterthought that is just meant to try and appease people like me, but will not satiate us successfully because we know what you're doing. And if you define that as, oh, maybe they're giving you $80 off. No, they're not. That's ridiculous. Like $800 effectively. Because here's the thing. In the United States anyway, we don't have a federal sales tax. So let me explain this to people who live in other countries. The United States' sales tax is completely defined one part by the state you are in or the U.S. territory you're in, or in the case of Washington, D.C., the district you are in, plus the county and the city. So it's 3 layers. Some states entirely have no sales tax whatsoever. Some have, higher sales tax, but it can stack is the point. The highest in the country, I think, is American Samoa at like 13 or 15%, something like that. And the lowest, like I said, there's several states where it's just straight up 0. The national average, and it's just an average, is about 6%. And I know the Europeans are like, oh, here's you complaining about 13%, which is, again, not even a part of the U.S. I live in, and us sitting here in Europe crying over 35% sales tax. I think somebody said that from Sweden specifically. Anyway, just whatever. That's a whole different thing. But point is, it's too expensive for me to ever get excited about. Now, if the PS5 Pro had come with a disc drive and was bundled with GTA 6 and retailed for like $500, I think a lot more people would be excited about it, but they'd also never make money on that. So I completely get that part. But Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Like as of now, the system just launched, so we don't really have accurate data on how well it's selling. All we really had was all like kind of the pre-orders, and a lot of the pre-orders apparently they initially were kind of all right because your diehards were jumping on it right away. But then they kind of petered out and are just kind of weak sauce. So we'll see. Honestly, I don't really, I don't know. We'll find out over the course of time. But the other thing that's demotivating about it is it's like I said, it's a system built for just like one game. It will obviously work with other stuff. I'm sure there'll be games that are patched to have benefits on it and that kind of thing. But we all know how this goes now. This is just a stopgap until an inevitable PS6, which at this rate could come as early as 2026. I would bet more like 2027, but it's not actually inconceivable. It could be 2026. And that's like, do you really want to put down that kind of money for effectively just one game that's probably going to work after that anyway? I don't, but like we'll see. It scares me because it does basically confirm that the PS6 will not have disc support. And I think we all knew that from Microsoft. Like if you saw my video on them, I'd be shocked if they do any sort of physical edition console next. If they do any sort of console, they claim they're going to, but that could mean anything. It could be like a USB stick that's like, oh, this is just a way to link, Xbox, to our cloud service, and this will plug into any sort of like computer or whatever, and you can just launch our app. Like that could be what they mean by next generation console. In the case of Sony, they'll make a box. I believe that. I just don't believe that it'll necessarily have a disk drive anymore. And the thing that's really actually very ironic is Microsoft gets a lot of crap for being the guys phasing out physical media because obviously they're not doing it any favors. But Sony's in a lot of ways worse. Sony, you have to remember, is a conglomerate. They created, at least in part, the 4K Blu-ray Ultra HD disc format. They created the Blu-ray disc format. In part, they created the DVD. In part, they created the CD-ROM, aka the music CD. They don't support most of them. So this machine will not play music CDs. It will play DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4Ks. Like the PS4 famously did not play music CDs or 4K Blu-rays. Well, their Xbox line of hardware plays all of them, which was always strange because the hardware is there. Sony just intentionally locks it out by not putting in their... You have to understand, they own it. It should be a free obvious, whereas Microsoft doesn't, and they're paying a licensing fee over to Sony to keep that support in there. Do you know how few people are using a music CD on the Xbox Series X, and yet it works? That's insane. We know this year that Sony, now I guess we are diving a little bit into Sony corporate, that they're starting to cut production of Blu-rays. Now, specifically what they're cutting production of is a lot of the Blu-ray writable discs, like BDRs, are going to slow down on manufacturing. They're trying to whittle away at this format, which is also kind of funny because within the movies and television side of things, we're seeing something of a resurgence on physical media. While that format is still alive, people are getting more and more irritated with video streaming and so on and so forth. So like recently the Seinfeld box set was announced, which everybody thought was never going to happen. There's been a few of those lately. And the reason I bring that up is I hope Sony does not go too far with this. I hope there's someone over there smart enough to recognize that if you launch a PS6 with no disk drive, that no amount of, we're going to make an upgraded version with a disk drive is ever going to fix that. The image of that will be burned in forever. And, yes, I know the PS5 Slim and the PS5 Pro have like a detachable disk drive you can optionally connect. But when it's considered an afterthought, don't consider, enthusiasts to be taking you too seriously. We'll think of you as an afterthought. This is basically what I'm trying to say here. So, I don't know. We're seeing like two different concepts kind of eventually hit the wall, because on the gaming side of things, the direction is getting more and more towards getting rid of physical media altogether. But ironically, within the movie formats and the actual technology realm of, that Blu-ray discs are oddly having a resurgence. And it's just a matter of like which one gets there first. You know what I'm trying to say? Or if they impact or I don't know, mixed metaphor, I guess. But I really hope obviously that the next generation takes physical media more seriously, but I'm not delusional enough to think that's actually going to happen. But I will say, if they go ahead and they're just like, yep, the next generation PlayStation console is, has no physical media of any kind. It's just our box with our hardware in it. It has our digital ecosystem so you can download our games. Well, then congratulations. You have completely negated any reason that anyone is going to care about that. And I say that because at that point, you're just a gimped PC. If all you're offering me is digital downloads of games, a PC will already do that in a superior capacity. As I don't need to explain to all of you. You all already know this. The only thing you can potentially offer me that's better at that point is exclusive content that I cannot get on my PC. Oh, but wait. Now Sony also puts all their games out on PC, or at least for the most part. Again, what are you doing? What are you doing? As I don't like Microsoft's strategy of this cloud stuff, but at least it kind of makes sense what they think they're doing. From Sony's perspective, I can't help but wonder if they're thinking, well, if we just have a digital system, then everybody will just buy all their games on us and we never have to worry about competition, which is ironic because you're creating as much competition as you possibly could. Because then you're completely eliminating any reason anybody would ever buy it. But I don't know. These are two like flawed mentalities that both of these companies have, and we're just going to have to see what it plays out to. And far be it from me to tell these really successfully financial companies how to run their own business, but I will tell them, maybe you don't understand gamers that well, at least the target demographic you should be aiming for. This is unfortunately the problem when you try to have mass appeal. I know I'm old, but I grew up in an era where video games like the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis had a very specific target demographic, and they knew exactly how to play to that. Now, obviously, they wanted bigger numbers. When you open that door, like the way Sony did, and you try to have mass appeal, that does have massive financial benefits, but it also has a lot of downsides where you don't really know which is your base, because everybody has too many varying opinions. There's definitely going to be a ton of casuals out there that are like, I don't care that my stuff's digital. Whatever. I just play Madden and Call of Duty. That's all that matters to me. This is meaningless. It's a junk box. As soon as I'm done with it, I throw it away or I donate it to Goodwill or whatever. I understand that audience exists, but that was what happened with the Wii, was when you tried to appeal to the non-gaming audience and it killed your next platform. Now, I know I'm jumping way ahead here, but I fear for that future. That's all I'm trying to say. But fortunately, that future isn't immediate. So enjoy your PS5 while it still has disc-based content. And tell me if you guys probably got Astro Bot. Because the thing is, like, that's the other thing. Microsoft now is putting all their best exclusives over here too. Like we know Indiana Jones is coming to this thing. There's a very real possibility the Halo remake or reboot or whatever you want to call it will end up on here as well. None of the Activision or Bethesda acquisitions really mattered because all that stuff ends up over here anyway. So it's like, okay. it makes me wonder if Microsoft is just like, yeah, we're just going to eventually put an Xbox app on the PlayStation Store and everybody just gets along, kumbaya, and then that sounds nice at first until you realize you have no competition and there's no reason to do any of this. But that's just me as an old jaded millennial who grew up in happier times when it comes to gaming simplicity. But anyway, that'll about do it for me. If you guys could do me a favor, please tell me below, what do you think? Who is excited about any of this? Do you guys remember the Concord debacle? Did anybody buy Astro Bot? Who actually bought a PS4 Pro? Like, seriously, I want to know. Because, like, when I made that video before, I think I had, like, 3 people said they were super excited and they couldn't wait to see how all the comments were going to be wrong. Were those people correct? Were they dead wrong? Who out there actually bought it? I'm genuinely curious. So, with that, all that stuff, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, as well as check out all my social media stuff in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, my Spreadshirt, my travel channel. I appreciate the support on those platforms. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.